Those hills that you see in front of us are the property.
You know, just once we get into those hills, we got about 13 miles to go to the east, and then we're right there. Yeah, the size of this district, and get a chance to walk over it, it'll amaze you.
Welcome to Reyna Silver's Medicine Springs project. We are in the middle of the Medicine Springs topographic sheet, which is evidently where the name came from. This is a carbonate replacement exploration target, very early stage. There's a little bit of historic mining, probably not more than 25 or 30,000 tons total between these small mines, but they got exactly the right kind of thing that we're looking for historically. High-grade silver mineralization with lead and zinc associated with jasperoid, which is a form of high silica alteration that forms very resistant knobs that weather out in strong contrast to the rocks surrounding them. So this district has seen a fair amount of shallow reverse circulation drilling. They got some good grades in some of those holes, but they weren't looking at it for the same thing we're here looking for. We're looking for a concentrated high-grade carbonate replacement system. To do that, you need carbonates, and the regional stratigraphy tells us that we're fairly high in the sequence, so there's good reason to believe that favorable host rocks will persist to depth. You need a plumbing system. We have a very strong and very obvious plumbing system here, which is where the old mines are, where the jasperoids are, and you know, the combination of those two makes the trap where the mineralization is. And the drilling tells us that there are significant volumes of rock that are mineralized. We think those are effectively leakage from something larger and more concentrated at depth. So that's the model we're pursuing here. We've dramatically expanded the land position from what we originally had. We've added about 500 claims, which probably triples the size of the ground we have, because we can see just based on reconnaissance that the district has a larger footprint than what we acquired initially. The beauty of this area is that there isn't anybody else out here to compete with us, so we've been able to pick up the ground and control a consolidated district scale play, which is something that's very nice to have in this day and age. With the competition that's increased over the last 6 months, it's hard to put together a land package like that, and we're very pleased to have that here. We think we control it all. If we see something that says we don't, we'll add on a few more claims.
Yeah.
You know, that's a little prospect pit. That's an area where somebody has poked around looking for things. That's probably another one right up there on the top of that little hill. And then this whole hill behind us is the golden pipe zone. So that's where the drilling was concentrated historically.
Okay.
It was concentrated there in part because that was the property package they had, and a lot of the stuff that we recognize as favorable, they didn't have.
Yeah.
So we've put together a larger and consolidated land package so we can explore the whole thing without worrying about whether we're running out of the pigeonhole or not.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense.
The other thing we found was we went as far east as we could get and went up this canyon and found jasperoid outcrops taller than me, 50 meters long, multiple stage jasperoids outside of the claim package, and clearly outside of what people had thought of as the limits of this system, or at least the limits of what they could afford to tie up as a coherent claim package. So recognizing that, and recognizing that we could follow that sort of thing for considerable distances, essentially all around the existing claim package, told us that the system was bigger than we thought. You know, we had limited time out here, but it's telling us we've got all the right signs, it's a big system, we got to come out here and we got to do the work, and we've got to do it right from the beginning. The first thing we have to do is try to understand the dimensions and the limits of the system, and then work our way in from there. So we'll do we'll take all of the data that we already have. We'll do a LiDAR survey, which will give us a very high resolution topographic map of this entire area. It should bring out the structures. It should be able to see jasperoid outcrops as small as about like this. We can sample those systematically, try to determine the district metal zoning pattern, and that'll put us in the position to decide whether we do a little more geophysics and then drill, or whether we just go straight to drilling. So we know one area where there's mineralization. That's where the historic drilling has been done. What we don't know is whether that's the best mineralization in the district. And because we're recognizing that it's bigger than people thought, that tells us it's worth our while to get the groundwork done right first before we go out and start drilling. Because as soon as you hit something, you're going to keep drilling there, and that's going to make it hard to pull away and drill some other place, even if you think it's better than where you've been drilling. So take this district scale down to target. We have an existing geologic map base for this project, which is pretty good. But what we're going to find as we go out with the LiDAR and we start sampling in more detail, we're going to add to that map. And based on what we see, we'll determine whether we really need a more detailed surface mapping or not, or where we need it, because there may only be parts of the system that we need. The LiDAR should do a lot of mapping for us. Okay. It should bring out a lot of structures that don't show up on the historic maps, that, 10 minutes in the field shows you that you're standing on one of these structures and it's not on the map. So then it's just a question of how many more there are like that. Okay. There's another philosophical point too, which is that a lot of people basically come into exploration doing what's been done before. Right. And if you do that, you're not going to find anything, because if that worked, whoever was there before you would have found it. Yes. And there's a famous geologist named Jim Gillooly who always said that the rocks only answer the questions that you ask them. Mm-hmm. And we know different questions to ask the rocks now. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing to stop you from going back and asking the same old rocks the same new questions. Yeah. And that's what we're doing here. You picked up the property, we've come in, we've recognized that there's more here than people thought. And it's something we can sink our teeth into. Yes. One of the fundamental things we look for in our approach to CRD systems is we know that they are multi-stage systems. So they sit there and cycle over a fair period of geologic time. It's not as long as you'd think. Mm-hmm. We now understand that most big ore deposits form in less than 1 million years, which is almost instantaneously as far as geologic time is concerned. But we're always looking for evidence at every scale that tells us multiple stages of ore fluids or altering fluids pass through this packet of rocks. So we're constantly going, okay, this checks this box, this checks this box, this is telling us we're in the right place. And if we can't check many of those boxes, then we go, well, maybe we should be going somewhere else. And so far, this place is ticking a lot of the boxes. Yeah. When you look here at the shaft, yeah, you can see this big resistant piece of rock that was hard to move, and so they went below it. So that's the jasperoid vein that they went down on. Yeah. And right over there is that same jasperoid vein sticking up out of the ground, right, and running off through the trees. Yeah. And so it's jasperoids like this that are telling us these are leakage along these structures. And this not only had jasperoid, this had lead, zinc, silver mineralization associated with it. Yep. And so this is the plumbing that we want to follow. So again, you can see the different colors of the jasperoid. Here's a sort of an orange, well, that's lichen, but there's a lot of gray jasperoid, and then there's this very rich iron infused hematitic jasperoid. My guess is that's probably the more productive stage than the gray, but we have to get some samples to figure that out. This didn't work for the old timers, but it's probably going to be a good geochemical indicator of what we care about. I mean, this feels to me like it's got some barite in it. See right in here, you can see the two different colors those are two different stages of mineralization within the jasperoid. This one that my foot is on probably being the more interesting one. Here's an exposure of one of these little veins. We should be able to see this with the LiDAR survey at this kind of scale. So this is a little bit of that same vein trend in outcrop. But again, you can see 1, 2, 3, probably at least 4 different stages of movement and remineralization of that little jasperoid vein just in a 1 meter outcrop.
Yeah.
And it's not alone, because there's another one over there, and it looks like there's another one right over there. So this is the kind of stuff, if you're trying to map it, just working through the bush,
Yeah, it's tough.
it'll be tough, but if you can find it first with the LiDAR, it'll make it very easy. And some of it is, you know, that's pretty interesting looking stuff there. Maybe this is even more so with this dark, almost black, red stuff, and it's all over. So there's these little parallel structures all through here that this is all eroding from. So Golden Pipe is over there. So one of the things you can see from here is you can see these sort of parallel canyons. There's one below us here. There's one right below us. There's one on the other side of this low ridge. There's another one. You can see the cliff with the white stripe across it right down over there. There's another valley parallel to that. You can see cuts way back into the mountains. That whole structure in there is filled with jasperoid, and there's one more even to the east of that. So here you can see the flanks of this next little ridge over. You see all the old roads. Those are all go into little prospect pits and places where people were digging and checking out alteration. And all of that's gonna just pop on the LiDAR.
Something big's going on here. Something big and hot had to feed all of this.
There's prospect pits all over that hill. There's prospects along the valley off there to the east. So, you know, we're now talking an area that's easily 5 by 5 kilometers, maybe a little more than that. So now you're starting to talking, you know, that would be, what, 2,500 hectares? This whole area is laced with these things. That's beautiful. You can see the barite stage, which is the white stuff, is cut by this later manganese stage. And you know, we will take a selected sample of that manganese, because that's probably got a fair amount of silver in it. That's heavy. Oh yeah, well that's the barite.
We're at the Medicine Springs project in Nevada. This is a project that Reyna Silver acquired in the fall of 2020. We're in the middle of our spring exploration campaign. We've been lucky enough to acquire this project, which already had a little bit of historic production as well as exploration, including drilling that has been done. And when we acquired it, Peter McGaw immediately recognized that this had all the makings of CRD district scale project. And we've been starting the exploration campaign, and we'll be keeping you informed of how we move forward with this project over the next few months and years.
I was going to suggest more like a manganese-infused limestone, but you could be right.
Just there's no mass to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels like you could pour water through it. As I tell people, students who ask me about being a geologist, I said, if you can think of doing something else, do it. But if you can't, welcome to the club. Yeah, there's some really good looking manganese oxides in here. Take a picture of it so you can remember what color is what. If you see secondary base metal oxides in there, might see some cerussite in some of this stuff, would be my suspicion. Try to get a couple of samples of the cleanest barite you can, just so we can see if there's anything that runs with it. On this kind of outcrop, I'd take a sample of this and a sample of that, and maybe even sample those separately. Just this is more comminuted probably. It's definitely worth looking at. And the fact that it's right on the edge of the overall jasperoid suggests that it could be a breccia dike.
Yeah, no, certainly.
I mean, this part is starting to look close to matrix supported, if not matrix supported. That's fragment supported, but that's not. You can track these things for, this one you can track for over 100 meters that way and back into the woods. This would be a good place to get, this would be a good orientation sample location.
Yeah.